It's not a game.
Please forgive us, Abba Yahuwah.
Many of you think it's a game.
Please forgive us, Abba Yahuwah.
Many of you think that this is a game.
Forgive us, Abba Yahuwah.
Many of you think that you can come in here and not give Abba your very best.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
You may be able to go in some circuit
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
and not give your very best.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
But when you come into the assembly of Yahuwah,
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
you better come bearing gifts.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
You don't come into the court of a sovereign
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
not bearing gifts,
Please, Abba
not bearing your very best.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
You may go to Hashatan and not give him your very best. But when you come to Yahuwah, you must give him your very best. You can't come in here faking it until you make it.
Please forgive
Because the root sees you.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
He sees you.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
Where the root dwells, he sees you, exposes all nakedness.
Please forgive us, Abba.
He sees you.
Please have compassion, Abba.
You cannot come in here that way.
Compassion, Abba Yahuwah.
You cannot fake it until you make it.
Please have compassion.
Abba calls for all of us. He calls for all of us. He calls for a complete offering,
Please, Abba.
for an ascending offering, for a whole burnt offering. Every lukewarm offering is going to be rejected.
Please, Abba Yahuwah.
He vomits it out of his mouth. He vomits it out of his mouth. Indeed, the message that he has for us on this young, if you are taking notes, it is a message. It is a proclamation. It is not a teaching. It is a message and a proclamation. The title of this proclamation is Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. You think it's a game. You think it's a game. It's not a game.
Please forgive us, Abba.
It's not a game. It's not a game. Either he has all of us or none of us. Either he has all of our minds or none of our minds. Either he has all of our hearts or none of our hearts. He demands all of us. All of us. If he can't have all of us, he don't want any of us. It's not a game. This is not a game. If anyone has a love for this world, then the love of Yahuwah is not in them. If you love this world in any form, shape, or fashion, the love of Yahuwah is not in you. This is not a church. This is his called out assembly. And if you are mixed, if you have mixed affections, if you have dual loyalties, mixed loyalties, you don't belong to him. You're not his. You don't belong to him. You don't belong to him. He rejects your lukewarmness. He rejects it. It is foul. It is a foul taste in his mouth. He rejects your lukewarmness. Either you're going to give him all or come out of this walk. He told you from the very beginning to count up the cost. He told you to count up the cost. To make the determination of whether or not this walk is something that you can afford. Because if it isn't something that you can afford, don't even begin this walk. Don't even begin this narrow walk. This walk is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Indeed, many are called, but few are going to be chosen. Few are going to be chosen. Do you hear him? Few are going to be chosen. If you don't give him your all, you're not going to be chosen. He's going to vomit you out of his mouth. He's going to vomit you out of his mouth. Matthew, the 20th chapter. Matthew, the 20th chapter. Matat Yahu, the 20th chapter. Oh, Abba. Abba. Make them understand that this is not a game. Make them understand, Abba. This isn't a game. Matthew, the 20th chapter, verse 1 through 16. For the reign of the Shamayim is like a man, a householder who went out early in the morning to hire workers for the vineyard, for his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the workers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. And he went about the third hour. Indeed, this is no coincidence that he went about the third hour. This is the time of the morning offering. This is the time of the morning offering, when the offerings went forth, when you were told to bring his food. You had no food for him. You had no food because you're lukewarm. You think this is a game. You think that it is a suggestion that you bring him his food. He spoke to you and told you that it was a commandment that we bring him his food. We are his food. We are his portion. And we must give him, all of us, an ascending offering, a whole burnt offering. We must give him all of us. Nothing else will do. Nothing else will do. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said to them, you too go into the vineyard, and whatever is right, I shall give you. And they went. Having gone out again about the 6th hour, this is not coincidence. This is not coincidence. This is the time that he hung on the stake, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th hour. These are the times that we are to bring him his offering. And they went, having gone out again about the 6th and the 9th hour, and the 9th hour, and did likewise. And did likewise. And about the 11th hour, having gone out, he found others standing idle, and said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? They said to him, because no one hired us. And he said to them, you too go into the vineyard, and whatever is right, you shall receive. And when the evening came, the master of the vineyard said to his manager, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. Beginning with the last to the first. Indeed, we must work while it is still day. Night comes when no man can work. We must work while it is still day. When night comes, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. When night comes, the hunters are coming. The hunters are coming when night comes. The hunters are coming. And all you who are lukewarm, the hunters are coming for you. Because you're not hearing the voice of those crying out in the wilderness. He has sent one, Shabbat after Shabbat, a voice crying out in the wilderness. And you still think it's a game. You still think this is a game. He doesn't have your whole heart. He doesn't have your whole heart. He doesn't have it. Why do you stand here idle all day? They said to him, because no one hired us. He said to them, you too go into the vineyard, and whatever is right, you shall receive. And when the evening came, the master of the vineyard said to the manager, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. And when those came who were hired about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. And when the first came, yes, they thought that they would receive more. But they too received each a silver piece. And when they received it, they grumbled against the householder, saying, these last have worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the heat of the day. Indeed, some are going to come in at the 11th hour And they're going to enter into life where some of you entered in the morning, but because you're lukewarm, he's going to vomit you out of his mouth. Some are going to come at the 11th hour and truly worship him and truly serve him and give up all for him. But some of you that entered at the 3rd hour, he's going to vomit you out of his mouth because you're lukewarm. But he answering said to one of them, friend, I do you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take yours and go. But I wish to give the last man as also to you. Is it not right for me to do what I wish with my own? Or is your eye evil because I am good? Thus the last shall be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen. For many are called, but few are chosen. Who are those who are chosen? Those who do the will of the Father. Those who do his will. Those whose hearts are pure and perfect towards him. Indeed, his eyes go to and fro, looking for a heart that's perfect towards him. Those whose heart are perfect towards him, who do his will. These are the chosen. These are the chosen. Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22, verse 1 through 14. Matthew chapter 22, verse 1 through 14. And Yahushua responded and spoke to them again by parables and said, the reign of the Shamayim is like a man, a sovereign, who made a wedding feast for his son, and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they would not come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, say to those who were invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle are slaughtered, and all is ready. Come to the wedding feast. Indeed, if you can perceive, his servant has stood before you Shabbat after Shabbat, inviting you to the wedding feast. Inviting you to the wedding feast. For all who have eyes to see and ears to hear, his servant has stood before you, being poured out from, calling you into the wedding feast. Some of you have heard. Some of you still think that this is a game. But they disregarded it and went their way. This one to his field, that one to his trade. You see, they were a mixture. They were a mixture. You see, Abba has spoken that those who love this world, the love of Yahuwah is not in them. Unless we give up all, we cannot be his taught ones. Unless we give up all, we cannot be his chosen. If there is a mixture, if there is a mixture, if there is competition with respect to our love and our affections for Abba, we're lukewarm. We're lukewarm, and we are not his. If he doesn't have our whole heart, he doesn't want any of it. But they disregarded it and went their ways. This one to his field, that one to his trade. And the rest, having seized his servants, insulted and killed them. But when the sovereign heard, he was wroth, and sent out his soldiers, destroyed those murderers, and set their city on fire. Indeed, Babylon is going to burn. Yes, it is. Babylon is going to burn. And all of the inhabitants of Babylon are going to burn with her. All of those who are lukewarm, who the Father doesn't have your whole heart, whose one foot is walking in Babylon and the other you're trying to walk in light. You see, shade is still darkness. Shade is still darkness. If you're not walking in the wholeness of light, you're not walking in light at all. Shade is still darkness. Shade is still darkness. But when the sovereign heard, he was wroth and sent out his soldiers, destroyed those murderers, and set their city on fire. Then he said to his servants, the wedding feast indeed is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. But those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into the street corners, and as many as you'll find, invite to the wedding feast. And those servants went out into the street corners and gathered all whom they found, both wicked and good. Both wicked and good. Indeed, the wedding feast is the first resurrection. This is the gathering of the wheat into his barn. This is the first fruits. This is his firstborn son, as Kahan Gadol in the order of Melchizedek. When Yahushua HaMashiach returns as our Kahan Gadol, he is only coming back for his portion. The portion of Kahan Gadol, the portion of high priest, which is what? Which is the first fruits, which is the best, the first that splits the womb, which is the best of the oil and of the wine, which is the best of the bread, which is the best of the bread. He's coming back for his portion. But you won't even offer yourself as his portion. You won't even give him the best of the first that splits the womb, the best of the oil and of the wine, and the best of the bread. And that tells me that you are not his portion. You are not his portion. And if you are not his portion, a portion of the Kahan Gadol, then you are going to get up in the second resurrection, where some are going to resurrect to everlasting life, and some are going to resurrect to everlasting fire and brimstone. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. He's coming for his portion. He's coming for the first fruit. He's coming for Yahshua. But Yahshua has a character in which he operates in. Yahshua has the very character of the Father. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Because the character of the Father is his righteous Torah. And Yahshua operates in his righteous Torah, in Ruch and in truth. He operates in Torah because Torah is written upon his heart by his righteous Ruch HaKadosh. And he operates in Torah, in Ruch and in truth. He has the very characteristics and nature of his Father. He's just like his father. He's just like his daddy. He looks just like him. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And if you don't look just like him, you are an imposter. You are an imposter if you don't look just like him. He ain't coming back in the first resurrection for anyone else other than those who have his nature and his character. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He ain't coming for nobody else. He's not coming for anybody else. Everybody else is going to be locked up in the pit of punishment. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're going to be locked up in the pit of punishment for 1,000 years, awaiting the eternal judgment. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Well, some are going to resurrect to everlasting life, and some to everlasting punishment. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. All those who are lukewarm, all those who are lukewarm are going to be vomited out of his mouth. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But those servants went out into the street corners and gathered all whom they found, both wicked and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. And when the sovereign came in to view the guests, he saw there a man who had not put on a wedding garment. Oh, he was not wearing righteousness. No, he was lukewarm. He was not wearing righteousness. His garments were defiled. There was a mixture. He had spot and blemish on his garments. His garments were not pure. He was not walking in the righteous Torah, in Ruch and in truth. He was not wearing the very nature and character of Yahuwah Al Shaddai. And he said to him, friend, how did you come in here not having a wedding garment? Indeed, if you ain't a virgin, Barak Yahuwah, if you're not a virgin, if your garments are stained with the blood of your impurity, with the blood of your virginity, indicating that you have been given up the cookies to foreign mighty ones, and he sees that blood on your garments. If your garments are not spotless and clean, you're not wearing the proper wedding garments. He is going to declare, friend, how did you come in here not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. And he was speechless. Then the sovereign said to the servants, bind him hand and foot. Bind this wicked servant. Bind him hand and foot. Take him away and throw him into the outer darkness. Yes, yes, this is the pit. This is not even a lake of fire yet. This person is going to be kept in the pit in outer darkness for 1,000 years until the final judgment comes, until the second resurrection comes. And then standing there before the great white throne at the compassion of Yahuwah. But there at the great white throne, there won't be no compassion. You have compassion now, but there won't be no compassion. There will only be right ruling in accordance with his righteous Torah. Where there, those who have transgressed his righteous Torah, whose Torah is not written upon their hearts, who are not clothed in his righteousness, at the judgment seat at the great white throne, they're going to be taken from the pit, from eternal darkness, from the pit of darkness and gloom, and thrown into the eternal lake of fire. Oh, he's speaking to some of you today, and to those who are going to listen to this on YouTube later on. He's speaking to you. He's speaking to you. And he was speechless. Then the sovereign said to the servants, bind him hand and foot. Take him away and throw him out into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. For many are called, but few are chosen. Few are chosen. Only a remnant is going to enter into life. Do you understand? Only a remnant is going to enter into life. You must cling to truth for your very life. It must be everything to you. Yahuwah must be everything to you. His Torah must be everything to you. You must cling to it for your very life. Because only a remnant is going to enter into life. For many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter. Dabarim, the 6th chapter. Deuteronomy, Dabarim, the 6th chapter, verses 1 through 9. Dabarim, Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, verses 1 through 9. Many of you worship him with your lips, but your hearts are far from him. Many of you on YouTube and listening via Zoom, you worship him with your lips, but your hearts are far from him. Are far from him. As I listened to the worship and the praise, my ruach was vexed this day. My ruach was vexed because of all the confusion and disorder. Understanding that your hearts are far from him. You're only worshiping him with your lips. Dabarim, Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, verse 1 through 9, beginning at verse 1. And this is the command. This is the command. What is the command? This is the command. What is the command? Here is the command. The laws and right rulings which Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you revere Yahuwah your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands which I command you and your son and your grandson all the days of your life, that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, Shema, Shema, hear and obey. Shema means to hear and obey. And you shall hear, Shema, O Yasha'al, and shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly as Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Shema Yasha'al. Yahuwah Eloheinu. Yahuwah Eloheinu Akkad. Shema, O Yasha'al. Yahuwah Elohim. Yahuwah is Akkad. He is one. And you shall love. Listen, this is the command. This is the command. And you shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, on your hand and on your forehead, on your hand and on your forehead. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, and on your gates. This is the command, that we love Yahuwah with all of our heart, with all of our being, and with all of our might. This is the command, that we love Yahuwah with all of our heart, with all of our might, and with all of our being. Meaning nothing else matters to us. Nothing else matters. We must love him this way. If you don't love him this way, you're lukewarm. You're lukewarm. And you've left your first love. You've left your first love. And if you don't repent and find your first love again, he's going to remove the lampstand. He's going to remove the lampstand, and he's going to reject you. He's going to reject you. Uikra, Leviticus, the 19th chapter. Uikra, Leviticus, the 19th chapter. Uikra, Leviticus, the 19th chapter. Uikra, Leviticus, the 19th chapter, verse 18, and then verses 33 and 34. Verse 18, and then verses 33 and 34. In Dabarim chapter 6, we are commanded, this is the command, to love Yahuwah with all of our heart, and with all of our might, and with all of our being. Here now, in Leviticus 19, 18, and verses 33 through 34, we read, do not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahuwah. I am Yahuwah. Skipping down to verses 33 and 34. And when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, do not oppress him. Let the stranger who dwells among you be to you as the native born among you. And you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Mashraim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Skipping over to the Bayit Kadashah again. Skipping over to the Bayit Kadashah again. That is to say, the renewed covenant. Reading from Matthew again. Matatyahu, the 22nd chapter. Matatyahu of Matthew, the 22nd chapter. Verse 37 through 40. Verse 37 through 40. If Yahuwah is in you, then you ought to have his very nature and his very character. You ought to look like him. You ought to look like his son. You ought to look like his firstborn son. If he is in you, you ought to look like him. Indeed, we will know them by their fruit. I see your fruit. I see it. It is not hidden. Your nakedness is exposed. I see your fruit. You don't look like him. You don't look like him. Matatyahu, Matthew, chapter 22, verses 37 through 40. Verses 37 through 40. And Yahusha said to him, you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. This is the first and great command. Command, not plural, singular. This is the first and great command. This is repeated in Dabarim in chapter 6. It says, this is the command. When Moshe was speaking to our ancestors, he said, this is the command. He did not say commands, plural. He said command. This is the command, that we love Yahuwah with all of our heart, with all of our being, and with all of our might. This is the first and great command, it reads here. And the second is like it. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the Nabiim. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the Nabiim. Let's take a quick look at the Greek word here, used for like, used in place of like. What we have here is the Strong's Greek 3664. It is the Greek word homeos, homeos, and it means like, resembling, the same as, the same as. What Yahuwah in flesh wants us to understand, that these two commands are not separate, that they are the same command. It is the same command. Homeos, the same as, the same as. It is the same command. The same command. Its root is the Greek word homou, and it means together at the same place and time. Together at the same place and time. Indeed, this is the same command. This is the same command. Abba don't deal with lip service. He sees your heart. He don't deal with lip service. He has taught us before that the Abayit word for love is Ahabah. Ahabah is a noun, meaning that it is a person, place, or thing, meaning that it is something tangible. It is something that you can touch and feel. It is something that you can see, that you can taste, that you can smell. Ahabah is something tangible, something that can be grabbed a hold of. This is true Ahabah. It ain't lip service. It ain't lip service. You see, the many operate in lip service. The many who have not given up all, who operate in lip service. These are the ones who are not going to be chosen. But the few who understand what true Ahabah is, that it is something tangible, that it is something that can be felt, that it is something that can be seen and touched and smelled, that it means to give up all for him. This is what true Ahabah means. The root of Ahabah, which is a noun, is ahab, which is a verb, which indicates that love is an action. It is an action. It takes action. Verb takes action. It is not merely lip service. It is not merely lip service. We don't love Yahuwah with our lips. Indeed, some of you worship him with your lips, but your hearts are far from him. Your hearts are far from him. Indeed, this is one command. Loving Yahuwah and loving our neighbor is synonymous. It is synonymous. We cannot say we love Yahuwah and hate our brother or our neighbor who we can see. We make him a liar. It is one command. Our love for Yahuwah is made manifest in our love for our neighbor. This is a sweet smelling aroma in its nostrils. Yahuwah's tangible love is made manifest in his people when we show that love towards his people. We show our love for Yahuwah. We show our love for Yahuwah by obeying his commands, something tangible, something that can be touched, something that can be seen and smelled and tasted, and action. We show our love for Yahuwah by obeying his commands. Likewise, we show love for our neighbor by obeying the commands of Yahuwah. As it is written, everyone who believes that Yahusha is the Mashiach has been born of Elohim, and everyone who loves the one bringing forth also loves the one having been born of him. By this we know that we love the children of Elohim, when we love Elohim and guard his commands. For this is the love for Elohim, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not heavy. His commands are not heavy. This is not lip service. He sees your heart. He sees your heart. He sees your heart. And your fruits betray you. Your lukewarmness betrays you. He sees your heart. If you don't tashuba, quick, he's going to vomit you out of his mouth. These two commands are inseparable. The command to love Yahuwah and our neighbor is one command. It is the same. It is inseparable. It is inseparable. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. John, 1 John, the 4th chapter. Yahukanan Allah, 1 John, the 4th chapter. 1 John, the 4th chapter. Yahukanan Allah, 1 John, the 4th chapter. 1 John, the 4th chapter. Verses 1 through 21. Verses 1 through 21. Beginning at verse 1. Beloved ones, do not believe every ruach, but prove the ruach whether they are of Elohim. Because many false Nabaim have gone into the world. By this you know the ruach of Elohim. Every ruach that confesses that Yahusha Mashiach has come in the flesh is of Elohim. And every ruach that does not confess that Yahusha Mashiach has come in the flesh is not of Elohim. And this is the ruach of the anti-Mashiach, which you heard is coming, and now is already in the world. You are of Elohim, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. They are the world, therefore they speak as of the world, and the world hears them. We are of Elohim. The one knowing Elohim hears us. Indeed, the one knowing Elohim hears his servant. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. He who is not of Elohim does not hear us. And we understand that in the Abarit sense, Shama means to hear and to obey. It's not enough to hear the word. You must be doers of the word. You must be doers of the word. We become righteous. He considers us righteous by hearing and doing. By Shama, by hearing and obeying. So it's not enough to hear his servants. You must obey the word that is being pronounced and proclaimed from their lips via the Ruach of Yahuwah al-Shaddai. We are of Elohim. The one knowing Elohim hears us. Shama, hears and obeys. He who is not of Elohim does not hear us. Shama, hear and obeys. By this we know the Ruach of truth and the Ruach of the delusion. Beloved ones, let us love one another, because love is of Elohim. And everyone who loves has been born of Elohim and knows Elohim. The one who does not love does not know Elohim, for Elohim is love. By this, the love of Elohim was manifested in us. Listen, by this, the love of Elohim was manifested in us, that Elohim has sent his only brought forth born into the world in order that we might live through him. Indeed, if his love has not manifested in you, if the Ruach HaKodesh has not been placed in you, in your heart, then the love of Yahuwah has not manifested in you, and you don't love him. And this is why you're lukewarm. And this is why you haven't given up all. And this is why you are mixture. You are mixture. And the fruit of your garden is defiled. Your fruit is defiled because you have not received the rebirth. You have not received the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh. And you will stick to his nostrils. And he's going to vomit you out of his mouth. He's going to vomit you out of his mouth. By this, the love of Elohim was manifested in us. In us. In us. You can't obey Torah without his righteous Ruach having been given to you, having written the Torah upon your heart, having circumcised your wicked heart, whereby giving you a love for Torah and a willingness to obey it. You cannot obey it without having the Ruach HaKodesh in you. Oh, you have faked it until you made it far too long. Your nakedness has been exposed. Your nakedness has been exposed. You better seek him while it is day. Because when night comes, he's going to turn the water off. You better seek the living water while it is day. Night is fastly coming when no one can work. And he's going to turn the living water off. The water must be turned off. The light must be turned off in order for the kingdom of darkness to manifest in this earth. He who has ears to hear, let him hear what thus says Yahuwah. By this the love of Elohim was manifested in us, that Elohim has sent his only brought forth spawn into the world in order that we might live through him. And this is love. Not that we loved Elohim, but that he loved us and sent his bond, his son, to be an atoning offering for our crimes. Beloved ones, if Elohim so loved us, we also ought to love one another. We can't love one another without his Ruach indwelling in us. We can't. We can't. We can't love one another. If you don't have his Ruach, you're just lip service. You cannot love him. You cannot truly love him. And we cannot truly love one another in obedience to Torah without his bond being in our hearts. Without the engrafting, without the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh. We cannot. You're just faking it. You're just faking it until you make it. But he has exposed your nakedness on this room. He has exposed your nakedness. You are buck naked. He has exposed your nakedness. And this ought to make you ashamed. And this ought to drive you to your knees and drive you to his face, to seek him for forgiveness and to ask him to forgive your crimes and to cover your nakedness. And beg him for his righteous Ruach HaKodesh, which separates us unto him. No one has seen Elohim at any time. If we love one another, Elohim does stay in us, and his love has been perfected in us. By this we know that we stay in him, and he in us, because he has given us his Ruach. I'm going to read it again. By this we know that we stay in him. The operative word here is in. We stay in him and he in us. Because he has given us of his Ruach. Of his Ruach. And the Ruach has fruit. He has fruit. If you don't operate in this fruit, your nakedness is exposed. I see your nakedness. I see you. You are naked and you ought to be ashamed. If you're not ashamed, that means you're still a Gentile. Because Gentiles are not ashamed of nakedness. They uncover themselves all the time. They are not ashamed of nakedness. And if you are not ashamed of nakedness, if you are not ashamed of crime, that means that you are a Gentile, that you have not received this righteous Ruach. And we have seen and bear witness that the Father has sent the Son, the bond, Savior of the world. Whoever confesses that Yahushua is the Son of Elohim, Elohim stays in him, and he in Elohim. And we have known and believed the love that Elohim has for us. Elohim is love, and he who stays in love stays in Elohim, and Elohim in him. By his love, by this love, has been perfected. By this love has been perfected with us. By what? By the Ruach HaKadosh, by the Ruach of his bond, who dwells in us. By this love has been perfected with us, in order that we might have boldness in the day of judgment. Have boldness in the day of judgment. Indeed, if you have been born from above, born from the loins of Yahuwah, born of the free woman, born from the son of promise, born from the second Adam, indeed, you will live. You will have judgment in the day of boldness. You will have boldness in the day of judgment. But if you have not been born from above, if he has not entered you as a man enters a woman, whereby entering into a marriage covenant with you, then you are still naked, and you are going to be ashamed, because your nakedness is going to be exposed, standing there before the great white throne. Because as he is, so are we in this world. Because as he is, so are we in this world. Indeed, he just spoke that we ought to have his nature and his character. So as he is, so are we in this world. We ought to have his very character. And as he is, we ought to be in this world. Barak Yahuwah. We ought to be visible images of the invisible Elohim. This is what he's calling for. This is the remnant in whom he's calling for. Not those who are faking it until they make it, but those who are willing to give up all, who have his very character and nature, who are visible images of the invisible Elohim. Indeed, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear holds punishment, and he who fears has not been made perfect in love. Indeed, if you truly have his ruach, if you truly have his ruach, you revere him and you love him with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. But you no longer fear punishment. You no longer fear punishment, because his ruach resides in you. Because his ruach resides in you. Because his ruach resides in you. But if you don't have his ruach, you're constantly living in fear. You're constantly living in fear, afraid of punishment. You're constantly there. Fear is not of Yahuwah. Fear is of the wicked one. If you're operating in fear, you're not operating in the ruach of Yahuwah. You're not operating in the fruit of the ruach, because you don't have him. Because you don't have him. Indeed, many are called, but few are chosen. Just like our ancestors that perished in the wilderness. A whole generation perished. Indeed, 600,000 men on foot perished in the wilderness. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. All who are of fighting age, 20 years and above, perished in the wilderness. 600,000 men on foot, not counting the women. 600,000 men on foot, not counting the women, perished in the wilderness. Why? Because they rejected his ruach. They rejected the living bread. They rejected the manna from Shamayim. And some of us, some of you, in the wilderness of the nations, are going to perish here in the wilderness of the nations, because you are rejecting the living bread, the living manna. And in rejecting the living bread, you are trampling on the very offering of Yahushua HaMashiach. You're spitting in his face. You're spitting on the very reason in which he came to set us free. You're trampling on his offering. You're trampling on him. And you're lukewarm. And he's going to vomit you out of his mouth. We love him because he first loved us. If someone says, I love Elohim, and hates his brother, he is a liar. He is a liar. If someone says, I love Elohim, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one not loving his brother, whom he has seen, how is he able to love Elohim, who he has not seen? And we have this command. Here it is again. One command. One command. And we have this command from him, that the one loving Elohim shall love his brother too. Shall love his brother too. Indeed, this is one command. One command. We show Abba that we love him. That we love him through our obedience to Torah. It is something tangible. It is something that can be seen and touched and smelled and tasted. It is something tangible. It is not merely lip service. It is not pharisaical. It is not religious. It is the Pharisees whom he declared, these people worship me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. But their hearts are far from me. That's religion. That's pharisaical. You see, they too rejected his Ruach. They rejected the Ruach HaKadosh. Through the Ruach HaKadosh alone can we love him and obey him and worship him and Ruach and in truth. Through the Ruach HaKadosh alone can we produce the fruits of repentance. Can we produce the fruit that leads to everlasting life? Otherwise, you're just faking it until you make it. But he has exposed your nakedness this day. He has exposed you. You are naked. He sees you. He sees you. He sees your nakedness. Uikra, Leviticus, the 18th chapter. Leviticus, the 18th chapter. Leviticus, the 18th chapter, verse 5. Verse 5. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live if he does them. I am Yahuwah. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, which is to do what? To love Yahuwah with all of our heart, mind, and might. And might. This is what it means. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live if he does them. I am Yahuwah. And he sent his servant by today to speak words of life. To speak words of life. To he who has ears. And to he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Let him hear. Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10.
3:31.
Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10. Verses 25 through 28. Verses 25 through 28. And see, a certain one learned in the Torah stood up, trying him and saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit everlasting life? And he said to him, What has been written in the Torah? How do you read it? And he answering said, You shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Listen. And he said to him, You have answered rightly. Do this, and you shall live. Do this, and you shall live. Leviticus 18:5 said again, So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live if he does them. I am Yahuwah. Yahusha repeats the same thing. He confirms it here. He must confirm it because he's the living Torah. He says that you have answered rightly. Do this and you shall live. Do this and you shall live. You see, there is no fear in love, Mashpaka. There is no lukewarmness in love. There is no lukewarmness in love. No, 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 no. You're a liar if you say there is. You see, many of your nakedness have been exposed today. Many of your nakedness has been exposed. You're faking it till you make it. You're worshiping him with your lips, but he don't have your whole heart. He won't take half your heart. He won't take 3/4 of your heart. He wants the whole heart. And if he doesn't have it all, he don't want any of it. He doesn't want any of it. He must have it all. He must have it all. Yahuwah and Allah, 1 John chapter 5. 1 John chapter 5. Yahuwah and Allah. 1 John chapter 5. Yahuwah and Allah. 1 John chapter 5. Yahuwah Allah. 1 John chapter 5. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you. We give you esteem. We give you honor and praise, Barak Yahuwah, for your chastisement. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. By this we know that we love the children of Elohim, when we love Elohim and guard his commands. For this is the love of Elohim, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not heavy. That had to be read again. That had to be read again. John chapter 13. John chapter 13. John chapter 13. John chapter 13. You see, there are many who make the claim and who boast that they guard the commands of Yahuwah. They make this boast that they guard the commands of Yahuwah, but his root is far from them. And this makes them a liar. This makes them a liar. You see, we can't guard the Torah without love, because Torah is love. And we can't truly love without the Ruach HaKadosh indwelling in us. And if the Ruach HaKadosh is not dwelling in us, I see your fruit. I see your nakedness. Yes, I do. And so does Abba. He sees you. He sees you. Many make this boast that they guard the commands, that they keep the commands. Yet their lives are there's still turmoil in their lives. Their lives are tore up. Now, that's not to say that we're going to have, that everything is going to be perfect all the time. But listen, if the Ruach HaKadosh is in us, even if all Sha'al is breaking loose, if the Shamayim is passing away, if fire is coming down from Shamayim, if we have the Ruach HaKadosh, we can have shalom. We will have shalom, because shalom is fruit. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Shalom is fruit. He is shalom. Yahuwah is shalom. He is Yahuwah shalom. And so if you have him, if he is in you, then you have shalom. You have his fruit. You have his nature. You have his character. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you have his root. If you have his root in you. Oh, you ought to be looking down at your exposed nakedness right now. You ought to be looking down at your exposed buttocks right now. Even calling out right now for Abba to forgive you and to cover your nakedness, to cover your shame. Yes, you should. Yes, you should. John, the 13th chapter, verse 34 and 35. John, the 13th chapter, verse 34 and 35. John, the 13th chapter, verse 34 and 35. A renewed command I give you, not a new one. Not a new one. Why is it renewed? Because in Leviticus, the 19th chapter, he told us to love our neighbor as ourselves and to love the stranger as ourselves. So it's not a new command, it is a renewed command. We've also been commanded to love Yahuwah with all of our heart, with all of our being, with all of our might. So this is a renewed command. This is a reminder. It's not a new command. It's a renewed command. Kadash, a renewed one. A renewed command I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. Listen. By this shall all know that you are my taught ones. By this shall all know that you are my taught ones, if you have love for one another. If you have love for one another. Now this ought to be manifested in your fruit. This ought to be manifested in your fruit. Now this, he is identifying here who he is. He is identifying who he is, Yasharal. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yasharal is his firstborn son. And as the firstborn son, being the beginning of his father's strength, he is to have the very nature and character of his father. Did not we read above when it said that Yahuwah is love? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And so if we indeed are his firstborn son, then we ought to look like him. And we ought to act like him. We ought to speak like him. We ought to think like him. We ought to be visible images of the invisible Elohim. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And so this is what identifies us. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As he is love, we ought to be loved. As he is not lip service, we ought not to be lip service. Yes, this is what identifies us. This is what identifies us. And we cannot say that we guard Torah and have not love in us. We cannot say that we guard Torah and have not the living Torah living inside of us. You're a liar. And you make him a liar. And you make him a liar. Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. You have rejected this root for long enough. You have faked it until you made it for long enough. Your nakedness is exposed. You are naked. Your nakedness is exposed. And just like those 600,000 men on foot, not counting the women who perished in the wilderness because they rejected this root. Many of you, if you do not repent and seek his root, and seek and ask and knock and allow him to be the most important thing in your life, you're going to perish in the wilderness of the nations. You're not going to enter into life because you've rejected the offering of the Hamashiach. He shed his dung so that he could send his root back to set us free. To set us free from what? To set us free from crime. To set us free from Egypt. To set us free from Hashatan, who is Pharaoh, who is Par'ah. How does he set us free from crime and from Egypt and Par'ah? By sending his root to us. Because if we have his root indwelling in us, we are under no more obligation then to obey the wicked inclinations of our flesh. And if we do so, we will live. We will live. But if we stay in the flesh, we're going to die. We're going to die. So to reject this root is to reject the very reason that he shed his dung for us. And that is to set us free. That is to set the captives free. That is to deliver us from the hands of Shaitan. Adam, our father, sold us into servitude, into bondage, and to slavery into him. But Yahuwah, in his great compassion, being righteous, being Zadok, being not one who can transgress Torah, came as his only begotten son to take on the punishment of his only begotten son. Because indeed the wages of crime is death. So death had to occur. Blood had to be shed. But in his great storehouse of compassion, he came down and assumed flesh to die in your place, so that you would not have to die and suffer. He shed his blood as dung to set you free. To set you free from captivity. To set you free from Hashatan. So that you could walk. So that you could walk in root and in truth. So that you could walk in love. So that you could take on his character and his nature, which is given to us by his root. So that we will live. So that we will live. So to reject this root, to not seek his root, is to trample on the very reason that he came. It is to trample on this offering. Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. Verse 46 through 50. Matthew chapter 12. Verse 46 through 50. Matthew chapter 12. Verse 46 through 50. Matthew, YAHUAH'S, chapter 12. Verse 46 through 50. And while he was still talking to the crowds, see, his mother and brothers stood outside, seeking to speak with him. And one said to him, see, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak with you. But he answering said to the one who spoke to him, who is my mother, and who are my brothers? And having stretched out his hand towards his taught ones, he said, see my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the desire of my Father, who is in the Shamayim, is my brother and my sister and my mother. For whoever does the desire of my Father, who is in the Shamayim, is my brother and my sister and my mother. What is the desire of our Father in Shamayim? That we obey, that we love, that we obey, and that we love. And so he's still narrowing this down right here, because not everybody is our brother or our sister or our mother. That's a very small circle, if you can understand. That's a very small circle. Indeed, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. Whoever hits share, stop sharing right now. Whoever hits share in the Zoom app, stop sharing right now. Basham Yahusha. Someone is sharing right now and is taking over the screen. Basham Yahusha. Basham Yahusha. Basham Yahusha. Luke, remind me when it's 3:55. 3:55. Luke chapter 14. Luke chapter 14, verses 25 through 33.